Final topic.
Yes.
GameTrailers is dead. Rest in peace, GameTrailers. Sad news this week. And, out of the blue, this is the thing. GameTrailers closes up shop after 13 years of doing it. And I want to talk about it. And basically the state of video game media, video game enthusiast press, however you want to do it. Because I hate to say it, but it doesn't surprise me that GameTrailers went away. It surprises me that it was out of the blue. Nobody saw it coming. I thought it was crazy that, it was, you get 4 hours of notice before everybody else. That's like, I think what Brandon tweeted about and talked about it on the NeoGAF forum, right? Is the fact that they came into work on Monday and found out that day it's over. And, and then they told people 4 hours later or whatever. But I think it goes back to the same thing we've talked about before. And I know it's an analogy and, a metaphor, I guess I beat into the ground all the time, is how for the longest time, we talked about the spectrum of game development, right? Where there was indies, there was this mid-tier THQ stuff, and then there was AAA, and then the mid-tier fell out, and all we're left with now is indies and AAA, right? And I think that's what we're seeing happen with games press, games personality, right? Where there's the independent circuit, that's us, Jim Sterling, these people who branch off, YouTube channels in general, they go off and do their own thing, have their own independent audience, maybe aren't the biggest audience in the world, but are able to support the people they love. Then you have mid-tier sites, which is where I would have put GameTrailers, and then you have your IGNs and GameSpots, these pillars, right, that I think are going to weather the storm. But I do see that I don't think GameTrailers definitely not the first .com to fold up from gaming coverage, and it's not going to be the last. But I think that's what you're going to continue to see, is that we're going to be left with these giant sites, and then everybody else. What happened, right, is like GameTrailers closes up. They do a final Twitch live stream I went and watched, and every comment in there is, go to a Patreon, keep doing this, I'll support you, da-da-da-da-da, right? And it's just similar to us, different circumstance, obviously, but like we come with our own fans, our own group behind us that like there are people who want to see Brandon and Kyle and all the guys over there keep doing their own content. But am I wrong, Colin? Is the mid-tier falling away? Is this an example of it?
The mid-tier is falling away, but I'm of the mind that no one's safe. And I mean that like on either side of the spectrum. Like I just think that because the way you do business on the internet is just changing.
Yeah.
Jim Sterling wrote a really thought-provoking piece on Jimquisition about it. Not that I didn't agree with all of it, but it was an interesting piece about the changing economics and the changing way that content is paid for and the changing way that content creators are treated. The situation is not tenable, even for the big guys, but certainly not for the middle and certainly not for the smaller guys either, which I think are just going to be crunched even worse, simply because ad blocker is so prevalent. And I'm of the mind that, because ads, especially over the last year or so, have been introducing malware onto people's computers and are just totally not managed properly and stuff, I'm not necessarily supporting using ad blocker, but I understand why people are using it more and more, because it really is like fucking with people's computers and fucking with their operating systems. And it's not so much like just trying to dodge the man or be a douchebag by like, not, sitting through an ad to pay for the free content you're otherwise getting. It's actually becoming destructive to the way people are using the internet. But on the flip side of that is that this hurts the traditional way that content is paid for. So you have to find other ways to pay for it. And there's only so many ways to pay. Like you can either do what Giant Bomb does, which is like, have subscription model with a pretty large group of people compared to our audience, and then some free content as well. But they're definitely user support. They're a hybrid of user support and like kind of more traditional means. Yeah. You can have like the GameSpots and the Eurogamers and the IGNs and whatever that are amalgamation of traditional ad revenue and pre-roll and 30-second ads before your videos and sponsored content and stuff like that. Or you can go towards the Jim Sterlings and us and others that do Patreon and we also are a hybrid because frankly, to be perfectly transparent, we make a decent amount of money not on Patreon. So it's not it's the lion's share of our revenue, but it does not.
You just heard me read a loot crate ad, which obviously we get paid for.
But like, I like being transparent with the audience, and I think they already know this. It's certainly not even remotely all of the money we make. So because it costs money to run this company, we wouldn't really be able to actually do what we do with just the Patreon money.
Right.
But it's certainly very important. So people just need to figure out a new way to approach the way that they're doing their content, and also the way that they're engaging with their readers, and I think set different kinds of expectations, which is why I think the big guys aren't necessarily just safe. I don't necessarily think it's a matter of like the middle falling away and everyone else is safe. Like I think that ultimately people are retreating to different venues to find people that they really trust in smaller groups in smaller communities that resonate with them more. And we have the evidence, the proof's in the pudding. Like there are thousands and thousands of people that will pay us $5 or $10 a month because they can get a review for free from VG 24/7, but they really would rather hear from us. And so they're like, well, we'll just give you $5 or $10 a month to make sure you guys can do this because it's just a drop in the bucket for me. It's like, $5 or $10 is not a lot of money for most people a month. And I think that the way we consume content is just changing. So I think that the whole landscape is really radically changing.
My whole thing is, I think the pillars I'm talking about, your IGN, your GameSpot, maybe one other big.com, which I can't even name what it would be. I think they're there. I don't think they're there in terms of maybe the scale and scope. You know what I mean? I think layoffs will come for those people. I think their staffs will be reduced. I think they'll do more user-generated content. But I still think that it's always going to be, this new game's come out, so I'm going to go to the 2 sites I always go to see the general review, the mainstream review, right? I will read that, and then I will go, awesome. It's a DC game, so I want to know what Greg thinks. It's PlayStation shooter, I want to know what, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to be, not just that we're the only examples, but you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have this mainstream base level review of what it is, but then you want to drill down to who the experts are. And the same reason you come to me for a Batman Superman review, but not what I think of Civil War trailer.
Right. Well, I think we saw this play out with Jim wrote a little bit about this. How much water are you going to drink? This is like your 17th cup of water.
God forbid I'm hydrated, Colin.
It's good for your colon.
Thank you.
But
I don't have colon problems, do I, Colin?
No, you don't. Because you never worried about a thing in your life, Greg. That's where my colon problems come from. Listen to the Game Over Greg show.
No, I think you worry about your colon problems, and that makes you have colon
That's
problems.
ironic. It's like a chicken in the egg.
It's kind of like when I get cold, and I got cold, I'm going to have to poop, and then I have to poop.
But
wheeled myself
my
into it.
like the
Do you ever
situation.
think maybe you always have to poop?
Is that my secret? I'm like
Sorry,
Bruce Banner.
Colin. I apologize.
The Jim Sterling wrote about this a little bit, that like what happens. I mean, he didn't write this specifically, but it's like what happens when the people that you trust at these outlets are transient. Like,
sure.
We saw this play out with P.S. I Love You, where like our podcast became #1 before we even put an episode up because people liked what we did with our old show. It's not to say the new show is bad. I mean, a lot of people love it and listen to it. That's fantastic. I wish them all the best. It's not a competition, really. It's just to say, like, when we said we were going to do a show like that, it didn't matter where we were. People came to the show. Mm-hmm. And Jim learned that when he left The Escapist and when he left Destructoid and is thriving. And others are going to learn it. And my suspicion with the Game Trailers guys, a few of them anyway, I'm speaking in all candor that I've never used Game Trailers. I don't know those guys. I don't use their content. So I'm not speaking from a user standpoint. I'm just speaking from, I know these people's names because people talk about how much they love them. Yeah. That you have to imagine that the bigger names there are going to be just fine. And I assume that that's going to be the case at other big outlets too. Like, there are people working at all of the outlets that I read or whatever, where I wonder if they understand that they could break off and do it by themselves. And that people would follow them, and it might not be easy. And success might not be guaranteed. Like we often talk about, like the fucking fear and the agita that I had in the months leading up to us leaving. It was was unfucking real. You know what I mean? Like how scary it was. Yet when I see comments, like I said earlier, people being like, "Man, they really fucked up," or they don't, like. No, we didn't. Like, we are more financially secure than we used to be. We are happier than we used to be. We have control over what we do, and we have a much smaller audience that is much more dedicated to us and what we do. And I wouldn't trade that for the fucking world. Everything's fine. You know what I mean? Like, everything's great, really, when you think about it. And so there's like life after that kind of stuff. Sure. But that goes back to what we were talking about with the guys from Campo Santos, which is like, we would also not be in this position without having learned from those OGs, from those big outlets, or in their guys' case from Telltale, in our case from IGN. Like, we just would not be in this position to have known what the fuck to even do without that experience. And so hopefully, like, new people come into those places, learn what they need to learn, either stay or leave, but use that experience to their benefit when they're gone, because that's what we've done as well. And I think we've made good content and fulfilled a niche need for a smaller audience, and that's fine. Like, I don't want Kind of Funny to have millions of viewers. I don't. Like,
I do.
I don't, because, like, dude, the second
I do if they're best friends. They're on the same page.
They're not going to be, and that's the thing is like, and that's like when you cross like the paradigm and things get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I think you lose control. Like, it's not to say I don't want the company to grow or become more lucrative or whatever or be better. Like, of course I do. It's just to say, like, I don't want to replicate like what has already been done. Like, I want it to be different, and like we've proven that you do not need 1 million people watching content to make money, to be profitable, to be happy, for people to be happy with the content. It doesn't matter. It matters, like, who are you connecting with and how do they support you and how do you support them and how do you entertain them? And it can literally be 100 people or 1,000 people or 500,000 people, but it does not have to be 10 million people. It is not an economy of scale.
Sure, but you're bending it the wrong way. You're bending it to the old model we came from or the thing we came from. You're saying that if 6 million people would change what kind of program we put out. We'd still do Colin and Greg Live. We'd still do the shows we want. We'd still do the products we believe in to serve the best friends. That's what I'm saying. For me, I'm not saying I want a million, 3 million, 10 million. I'm saying I want X best friends. I want everybody who's on board with us being cool, not being a douche, fucking being down ass motherfuckers with each other. You know what I mean? And I don't care what that is. And I don't think that necessarily, if suddenly the number was 7, we wouldn't do the Gamescast the way we do the Gamescast.
Right. I'm not saying that the content would change, but I am saying like look at the frankly, people have talked about this. We can be open about it. Look at the quality of the YouTube comments as we've gotten bigger. You know, like they've gone down. Like look at the Facebook group that I'm on all the time, like how a lot of people complain like this has gotten too big or whatever. I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong. All I'm saying is that like you don't have to look at scale as an equivalent on the graph to monetization or as an equivalent on the graph to success or security. It just doesn't work like that. You know, like it clearly does not work like that.
What do you got, Nick?
Yeah, no, I would say that's true. I would agree with Colin, but I think there's, when you say you don't want 1 million, I do want 1 million, but I want it to happen the right way. Right, I don't want 1 million the way IGN has to deal with the 80 million views they get a month or whatever their stat is, because their model is based on having to be as broad and as mainstream as humanly possible. That's just what they are. They're a resource site, and that's their model. I want us to have 1 million of people that are basically have been pounded down and have. You know, I want to start with 10 and whittle that down to 1 million, but like do that the natural, organic way, right? Does that make sense at all? Like
You're saying what I want. You want
I
the
want
same
1 million
people,
of
the
the
same best
hardest,
friend idea.
hardcore fucking people who are out there that believe in what we believe in, like what we're making, and want to help support that. And I think that's to your point what you can do now, right? And that's the guys from GameTrailers. Like I'm in Colin's boat. Like I'm not really familiar with them, other than by all accounts, and this is the most fascinating thing, is they should be bigger than IGN right now. They should be a fucking powerhouse, and for somewhere along the way they got off track.
They didn't get on YouTube. Remember, that was their big thing. They couldn't get on YouTube,
and so that's unfortunate, right? And that because I remember when I started at IGN, it was like 2005, and it was either 2005, 2006. I remember, you know, you knew about Game Trailers. They were this weird business that was doing really, really well, but they didn't write anything. It was all video, and I was like, all video? That's never gonna work. And then it started working really, really well. And then they got off track once YouTube hit. And I remember that time when we were having those discussions at IGN of like, should we reposting things to YouTube? Because there's a big audience there, but are we going to cannibalize our own traffic? Mm-hmm. Turns out, no, not really. Like there's two different audiences, people that like to use the site, people that like to use it. But they couldn't, I guess that's part of the problem that they had, was they weren't able to actually use the tools that are out there and evolve quickly. And that's when, you know, when we always talk about not wanting to go back to the IGN model, it's not so much that I wouldn't want to go back and work with some of the people over there, or like in general, they're great. It's just right now we're a company of 6 people, and we can.
Are we really?
He's counting James.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I count Kevin as 2 people. Sorry.
He eats like he's 2.
But we have, you know,
2 people are 2 years old.
We're a very small company.
He does have wings all over the side of his shirt.
Yeah, so it's like an amazing amount of tape on his socks.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're nimble and you can evolve. And to your point earlier, like it is really like we have the capability of being diversified in how we drive revenue into our bank account every month, right? The giant bomb, we do utilize that system. We do have like Patreon, for all intents and purposes, is just a subscription model. People can pay for the content they want. And in my opinion, that is the single like awesomest thing that any content creator has at their disposal at this point, right? The Game Trailers guys are smart. Start a Patreon, form a company, and go after it, and they will be successful because they have that community they've already built. They just may not realize that that community will follow them. It's maybe not brand specific, and it's maybe more personality specific. That we learned that too. We didn't know if like without IGN are we going to be anything, and it turns out people really liked you guys. They liked you guys, right? And I'm sure there was a part of the audience that was like, oh, well, fuck it, I'm not going to follow it anymore because I'm diehard IGN. I just, this is part of my regimen every day, and sucks that Colin and Greg don't write for the site anymore. But to be fair, Greg stopped writing 7 years ago anyway. And
I gross wrote most of the things he wrote anyway.
Yeah, that's true. So I
except for the Dead Space 2 review.
That's probably the funniest joke you've made in a long time.
I don't get it either, Kevin. I don't know what the joke is.
It's a long story.
All right. Well, we'll talk off air on that. So it sucks. But the other thing I will say this in the parting sort of sentiment for me, because I can't really speak too much to this, is just that I remember those days at IGN when we walked in thinking everything was okay, and then the whole fucking world blew up. I remember the days when we got bought twice when I was there, and I saw a lot of people get hired, and I saw 2 gigantic rounds of layoffs.
Yeah.
Where I walked in and like half of my friends suddenly didn't work there anymore. So if you think you're working at a place right now that is secure, you're not. You're not. Like, sorry, Kevin, you're fired.
You are secure though. I mean, you're secure, Kevin. Nick's not secure because we can vote him out at any moment.
That's true. So that's just what I'm saying is like you look and you think that these companies have these like to your earlier comment of people saying, "Oh, you fucked up. You're gonna go out there and like now you got all." Guess what though? I could have walked in at any point and someone that I'd never met at the parent company of the company that owns my company's company could have been like, you just need to cut 10% across the board and start with the people that have been there for a while, because they're obviously dead weight. And I would have been gone. And that would have been it. And someone would have hopefully put up a bit of a fight for me. But at the end of the day, I've never seen someone like, I mean, you just have to bend to whatever the GM, the CEO, or the shareholders
or what the number. You have to
want.
make the numbers make sense, and that's what I'm saying is like. I want Kind of Funny to grow responsibly, like Nick said, and slowly, but it's not my whole thing where it's like, share this video with all of your friends and make sure it's like, no, don't share the video with all your friends. Find that like one friend
dude that wants
like
it,
that that likes video games and tell him why you care about it and get him on board. I don't want your other friends like that. Like we don't like. We want an audience that's like engaged, and I want everyone in our audience to know like we care about you. Like we care about each and every person that supports us. It's not a numbers game to me. So it's not like, get everyone to watch the animated series. It's like, no, the animated series doesn't even really make any sense if you don't know anything about it. It's like, maybe that's an introduction to one of your friends that likes animation, and then they're interested in like the jokes and they watch the Game Over Greggy show. Like I want that sort of organic, like you said, slow growth that is responsible and manageable. That way Kind of Funny grows by 1 or 2 people a year. And then we don't have to worry about laying off Kevin, because like that's just because Kevin's gonna get laid off one day, but we don't have to worry about.
He's gonna get fired. Not laid off.
Let me put it this way: I don't worry about it. I fantasize about the day we get to fire Kevin. I just I think, how's it gonna happen?
We're moving into the new studio. We've hired 4 people, and you're just like, times are tough.
Is there gonna be like a balloon drop where it's like all the balloons spell you're fired, Kevin, and then hit the ground and like, did you see it? I'll do it again. And there's another balloon drop.
But do you understand what I'm saying? It's not a matter of scale. It's a matter of security and being true to what we want to do. Like if we had millions and millions of people watching us, I'll tell you right now, you'll never see him in another trade show ever again. That's like, because that's like too overwhelming for me.
Sure.
Like that's like,
sure.
That's like, no, like I like these intimate experiences that we have with the audience where there's a few hundred of us and we're shaking hands and we're having a great time and stuff like that. And it's not to say like, I wouldn't love for us to have 10 million viewers, but are we really ever gonna have 10 million viewers that are as fucking hardcore as the few hundred thousand people that we have watching us right now?
No, but that's the whole thing is that I think you need to align your expectations with that.
I think we both saying the same thing.
We have 300,000 subs right now, and if you want to boil it down, 168 or whatever, right? Let's say they're doubling up or whatever.
Actually.
But they don't all come to the show. They don't all leave a comment. You know what I mean? And the other thing to your comment too, that the YouTube comments are bad. Part of that, you just hit the nail on the head of why. You know where the YouTube comments are really good? P.S. I love you, XOXO, because I spend an hour in there talking to people. We're attentive to those people. We're not on GOG because it goes up at night, and we're in Gamescast because it goes up at 6 a.m. and we have a million fucking things to go. Since I have to, thanks to SoundCloud, publish SoundCloud by hand at 9 a.m., I have to be thinking of P.S. I love you at that point. So I'm able to be there and curate that. You know what I mean?
But I don't want us to lose, and I don't know that we're all on the same page on this. I don't know that we're all on the same page on a lot of things, which I think is actually healthy for the company because it provokes thought.
Otherwise, we have nothing to vote on.
Right, and then we scatter in different directions, but at least we're able to think about the things other people say. Like I remember a good example is I remember it was intuitive for you to think that like we shouldn't use the forums for questions because for like our shows, and I was like, but that's so obvious, and that and we were like on two different sides of the spectrum on that, and that just shows like how we come to like some sort of consensus agreement. I just never want us to lose like our grassroots feel. Like no matter how big and how grand Kind of Funny becomes, and whether or not we're involved with it forever, we sell out or like I don't mean sell out, but sell our shares, sell out of the company,
go up and be off camera.
Yeah, like and do whatever we want to do and like and empower other people to take over for us and whatever might happen. Like it's always going to be this grassroots feel of working in the extra bedroom with my friends that we all took this bold fucking step together and all held hands and jumped off a cliff and had no idea what the fuck was going to happen. And we all kind of believed in each other and told each other it was going to be fine, but none of us believed it was going to be fine, I don't think, including you. And you're the most positive. You had your last minute, is it going to be okay thing.
Yeah, it was one question to Tim.
And knowing that you don't, like, I know that you had fear, and we all did. And there's something special about the four of us doing it together, leaving very secure jobs, making pretty good money, especially in this industry, and it paying off. Like that's in every way. It paid off in every way. Yeah. And that's so spectacular. So like, you don't want to trifle and fuck with it too much. And that's like my whole mentality.
Yeah, but
like,
it feels special. This feels special.
No, it feels special, and it's because it is special. It's not. We didn't do this to be like, let's fucking get some marketing people in here. Let's grow this. Let's buy fucking views on YouTube. Let's like get these fake Twitter followers. It's all real. And that's
the
so
whole thing.
fucking cool.
That's why we're on the same page, but we're just in different paragraphs. You're doing the normal Colin thing where you're anxious about everything. Whereas I'm saying, yes, everything you're saying is correct. So if we suddenly have 1 million subs tomorrow, there are 1 million good subs. They're not people we bought. They're not from marketing. They're not this. My whole thing is I want you to share the video with everyone because the video will net out on its own who it is. 90% of people are going to jump in and be like, these guys are fucking dumb. Who's this guy they're insulting off camera? Peace. And they're not going to sit there and subscribe just to talk shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way I would do it.
Yeah, I think my metaphor, and this is something maybe neither of you guys are really like huge music fans, I guess, but you can appreciate this, is like back in the day, not before the internet, but certainly before the internet, but before people were really sharing music and downloading when Napster was invented at Northeastern University. Before there was all of that, before all of that happened, there was, you can download MP3s and all that kind of stuff, but people were really sharing their music on CDs and even on cassettes and taping things off the radio. And I remember, someone coming up to me with a record like Korn's Follow the Leader or something like that, or 311's Blue Album, which is how I got into 311 or whatever. And it wasn't like, you didn't give it to 10 people and be like, well, everyone's got to listen to this album. It's like, no, you'll like it. And then like you hand it over to them. It's like, it's that sort of like organic, like grassroots feeling. It's like how all these big bands like No Doubt came up in Orange County or something like that, where it's like this thing just circulates very slowly. And before you know it, you have this great foundation that doesn't crumble underneath you because you grew too fast or you grew for artificial reasons. And that's the only thing I'm saying. It's that mixtape mentality. It's that sharing music or sharing the NES cartridge, the SNES cartridge, not with everyone on the playground, but with like the two guys that really fucking loved
talk
it.
about it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
And like, so that's like my whole thing. The other people don't care, and that's fine.
I hear you and agree with you, but I think, again, you're negating the internet age. If somebody's following us right now and loves our shit and wants to share it to their 18 followers, I bet their 18 followers love anime and Dead Space just as much. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I'm saying.
But to go back to your earlier point, right? Like, is this the new, like, is this a fad or is this the new generation of content creators, right?
Yeah.
Because the original topic was that
Game Trailers is gone. What does it mean for everything?
Right. Where's that middle, right? Now, so we're clearly not, like, how do we get bigger while still staying small?
I think we get bigger while still saying ourselves by doing these things, making the right choices.
Because that's the problem.
As long as we're never pandering. You know what I mean? I don't 100% agree. I think the animated series, at least when Nick laid it out for me through the first 6 episodes, I was like, oh, you could be a normal person and watch this and have no idea who we are and enjoy it, but you're going to get more out of it if you're a fan, right? As long as we're never going to do the pandering show that has no personality. Craig and I were talking about this. Craig from Screw Attack was on Colin Moriarty Live today. We were talking about this, and he brought up Game Trailers too, because he hasn't, I don't think, had a chance to talk to people about it, right? And it is that thing of like, what is it? And it's personality, right? It's being yourselves. We're always going to be that. And so as long as we don't ever introduce a product that is devoid of who we are, that isn't you licking Tim's face on the beginning of a Love and Sex stuff and Colin and I dicking around.
Almost licking his face.
No, I heard off camera you did lick. I heard you edited the show and cut it right before you full on licked his face. True or false?
I licked the entire side of his face.
We're always going to make the content we are. And that's the thing about it, and why not to grow too fast and not to explode and not to be garbage eventually, is the fact of like, we're always going to be ourselves. We're always going to unflinchingly be ourselves.
Yeah.
You are going to tune in and you are going to know immediately if you like this dynamic, who we are, what we're saying. Colin will never not talk about politics.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if the comments are, I'm sick of hearing about this. Colin's like, I'm going to be myself. I'm always going to talk about Superman. You know what I mean? Like, that's how this is going to fucking be.
Yeah. I think one of the things I really like about where we're at right now, and this is something, my biggest fear is that as we get bigger, we'll sort of be forced to do the things that we necessarily aren't passionate about. But up until this point,
Who's forcing us to do that, though?
Well, that's what's been awesome so far is that we've had opportunities pop up in the past where we're like, this is a good opportunity. Does anyone want to do this?
And we say no.
And we say no, and then we go, sorry, we have to pass, right? Whereas at an IGN, someone's job would be to figure out, okay, this is an opportunity. How do we capitalize off of this? Because that's what's going to add to the year-end profits, right? Like, my job is not to make content. My job is not to actually, have passion for what I'm doing. My job is a biz dev person, and I'm supposed to connect point A with point B and make money from that, right? And we take a percentage of it. And so, like, I think that like needing to do that constantly does hurt the passion, hurt the authenticity of it. But that's going to be the struggle with us, right? Is that eventually we're gonna want, like, if there's a bigger project we want to do, we're going to have to leverage something to get that. And I just hope that, I actually hope we never have to do that. I hope we never have to get to a place where we feel like we need to kind of like bite off more than we can chew as far as financials are concerned.
Honestly, I don't think we're going to. Yeah. As long as we stay true to what we're talking about right now. Like, it's one of those, let's look back at like off the wall shit we've done, or even I've done, right? Cinnamon Toast Crunch selfie spoon was a paid opportunity, which I was upfront about with everybody and told them that. And the Samsung Pay app for Instagram, goofy thing. The Samsung Pay app thing, right? I turned into, this girl's popular on YouTube for making Tinder videos. I'll buy her a PS4 and write an obscenely long post explaining everything about PlayStation. I made it about us and our art humor, right? And the selfie spoon was because Colin's always threatening to break the selfie sticks, right? And like, those are things that fit with who we are. And there's been tons of other opportunities that have popped up. And they're like, what about product X, this, and we're like, no, like, there's no way for us. That doesn't fit with who we are. That doesn't fit with an inside joke. I can't tailor that to our audience to make them understand, not make them understand, make some content they'd care about. You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think we're going to get to the point where it's like, we want to make a major motion picture and we're going to have to partner with product X or service Y that is garbage. And we have to sit there and be like, thanks everybody. Let's talk about blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, and if we are, and it would be a product that we either like or agree or think fits well or whatever.
Or we can have some
theoretically.
fun with.
And of course, now we're spitballing in our spare bedroom in 5 years. Who the hell knows? But I mean, I think when we start taking those opportunities because we're taking for the money, that's when we get into a problem.
I like to think that in 5 years when we have a space, we still utilize this space for something. Like, this is always where we shoot Shuhei. Like, he always has to just be shot out of this room. You know what I mean?
I can't wait for Shuhei to come through here one day. Still hasn't been in this room.
Hasn't he?
No.
I thought he has.
No, he's been through for other stuff. We've had a Skype him. We did a in person. When he came through for Kind of Funny Live, it was just on Skype too. Yeah.
Oh man, I could have swore he co-hosted the morning show at one point.
No, you're thinking about Aisha Tyler. Aisha Tyler came through here.
Very, very similar human beings, similar jobs.
Shut up,
that might be
Kevin.
what I'm thinking of.
I'm kidding. Boo boo, I love you.
And just kidding.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the first ever Kind of Funny Gamescast episode 57. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long one, but it's been a ride. I've enjoyed myself. This has been a fun show, Colin.
That was right.
You're such a piece of shit.
The show's actually good. Who knew?
Well, yeah, when there's no Tim and there's a more 100% more Nick Scarpino, it's great.
I love myself.
Remember, support us on Patreon, do all that stuff, but more than anything, no, it's been our pleasure to serve you.